Hello everyone. Once again, welcome to Social Work and Mental Health subject. This is week 8 and the topic for this week is assessment for social work practice. So basically this week we will be talking about assessments. So it's just a 10 minutes conversation with you all. I have already uploaded a lot of information on LearnJCU site, so I hope you have read them all. If not, I just wanted to provide some direction so that you know how to use this literature to respond to some of your questions around assessments. So the key idea from this particular unit is that we want our students to understand the purpose of assessment, what is assessment, and how it is done and why it is done, and to become familiar with some key terms and key forms of assessment, including the mental state examination, needs for service, assessing risk, and family assessments. So these are the key ideas that are reflected in this week's reading. So there are many types of assessments, and I think our focus for this week is understanding mental health assessment from a social work perspective. And of course, in order to do that, we also need to understand the mental health assessment in general. So what is mental health assessment? It is a comprehensive clinical assessment and formation gathering of multiple areas. It is used to evaluate a person's cognitive, emotional, and physical well-being for the purpose of determining appropriate interventions, including psychiatric and medical treatment. The main purpose of a mental health assessment is to help consumers in their journey towards recovery. So, that's the main point that we are trying to understand, that mental health assessment is very crucial before we begin to actually provide any service. And there are a number of tools that are available for us. Some of them are like K10, Kessler scale, usually known as K10, risk assessment tool, MSE, that is mental state examination, LSP, life skill profile, DSM-5, ICD-10, etc., etc. You will find there are a number of tools available, but these are some of the tools that very frequently we use in our practice. And I just want to mention here that it is not a requirement of this subject for you to learn all these things now, but have an orientation about these tools. And if you start working in the mental health field, of course you will get some training to actually implement these tools in your clinical practice. But in general, we need to know these are some of the terms, tools that we use in social work practice as well. So having said that, what's the process of a mental health assessment? I think it's very important for us to remember these things, that we need to establish a very good relationship with the consumer to understand their context, understand their issues, and then that might help them to understand their own situation as well. So establishing rapport is a very crucial one. Number two is that a large amount of historical information are collected and organized while we carefully observe the consumer and carry out the mental state examination. So first is establishing relationship. Second one is very carefully observing and listening to the client. The third one is the clinician must achieve a thorough understanding of the consumer's problems and the context in which they arise. This includes an assessment of risk. The fourth point is all of this has to be explained to the consumer in a way they can understand. And the fifth point is the clinician and consumer have to decide what interventions are likely to be helpful, and then develop a treatment plan with the consumer and encourage them to follow it. Having completed the process, then now we look at what are the specific things that we do as social workers in the practice. So in terms of social work assessment, we use a brief psychosocial assessment tools to look at the current accommodation situations, finances, employment, relationship, family, other supports around risk, and of course develop a plan. So using biopsychosocial method is one of the key tools that we use. We also look at the financial assessment, looking at the following: financial commitments, personal expenses, food, accommodation, electricity, medical, etc., etc. what I'm trying to share with you is that social workers use social work specific tools to understand their current situations. So when completing a psychosocial assessment, the following needs are to be assessed. Their current financial needs or issues or stresses. Where is a consumer currently living? Are there any issues there? Does the consumer have a current partner, children, carer, family, etc.? Are there any current issues of concern, including legal? Is the consumer currently working, attending school, higher education, or training? Community living skills, these include things such as budgeting, personal care, community involvement, with an aim to enable the consumer to maximize their independence. Does the consumer have an appointed guardian or a financial administrator under the Guardianship or Administrator Act? So, as a social worker, we really need to pay attention to all these factors. And of course, there are many other legislations that we also need to take into consideration when completing a social work assessment in mental health. Some of them are Mental Health Act. It shapes how treatments can be provided. One aspect of this is the involuntary treatment of individuals with their mental illness. So, having an understanding about the Mental Health Act, social security legislation, understanding various types of Centrelink benefits and payments, like age pension, income management, advance payment, crisis payment. There are many allowances and things that are provided by the Centrelink. So having an understanding around those issues are very important as well. Third one is child welfare. Child safety is everyone's responsibility. Services and resources are available as well as mandatory notifications. Family violence, domestic violence orders, services that can assist and how the orders affect the consumers as well as risk. Housing, eligibility in applying for social housing and services. And legal aid, knowledge of various legal services including brief and basic knowledge of the legal system. So in order to do a comprehensive mental state assessment from a social work perspective, we use some of the tools that are already provided. Alongside, we also use biopsychosocial methods, and of course, as social workers, we also need to be equipped to understand the social realities around in which they are living. So, some acts, legislations that actually supports helps in this direction are Mental Health Act, social security legislations, child welfare, family violence issues, housing, legal aid. So we need to have fairly a good understanding about all these issues. Only then we will be able to provide a very comprehensive assessment. And of course, assessment is one part, but very often we forget the follow-up aspect of it. What I'm saying is that while we do a fantastic assessment, come up with a great plan, it's important that we follow up on that plan. That's very, very crucial. Now, these are some key ideas that I just wanted to mention to you this week. Now I would like you to reflect on some of the questions that are already provided in your study guide. Who owns the process and products of assessment? So you understand what is a process, what is an assessment, why it is done. So we understand that you will read from the text, and some of the readings that are assigned to you, they actually talk about the process and why assessment is important. So now the task is, you need to reflect who owns this process and the products of assessment. How can clients take a collaborative role in assessment? How do we include client in that process? Now, how can the information be shared between workers and services in ways that are respectful to clients? How can, through a holistic assessments, avoid intrusiveness and a loss of dignity? I also would like to request you all to read the Steve Hawkins text around strengths-based practice, and also see whether a strengths-based assessment is possible, and if so, how that can be done. How could you collaborate with the consumer in taking up this particular assessment? So these are the key ideas that I just wanted to mention to you this week. I hope next week we're going to have a lecture research, so there won't be any materials uploaded, but of course you will find some of the readings and resources for the entire subject will be uploaded, but there is no specific lecture for next week. I just want you all to remind once again that please, it's important for you to look after yourself. So revisit your self-care strategies, and I'll see you all next week. And when I speak next time, I'll talk more about the blogs and the second assignments. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Bye.